Yo boys, back with another video. Today's gonna be a good old fast tier list. I've actually had to restart the video like a few times. I've had background like streams on that just randomly came out of nowhere and I was already like, 10 minutes in the video, but whatevs. So pretty much I have a list here and we're gonna be having S plus tier, we're gonna have S tier, A tier, B tier, D tier, and the S plus tier, this means this is the top dogs. This is basically, sub rogues, like classes like that. Now, there is a little bit of argument in between these, and I'm going to talk about it. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but whatever it comes out as is what I'm going to post it. Obviously, you ain't got to watch the whole thing. You can skip to the end and just, see what you think about it. But we're going to start off with the good old-fashioned Dev Evoker. Very good spec right now. It's doing 100k to like 175 on burst. You're doing a lot of damage. You have a decent amount of utility, and I think honestly, I'm going to go through this quick. This is definitely an S tier. It's not an S plus tier. It's not like a top dog, but it's definitely it's good. It's only underrated at the moment because everyone's just playing a OP melee right now. So I'm gonna put it as S tier. This can be an argument. It could be A tier, but I mean, I'm basing this off of my personal experience, all facing this class at every rating that I've faced it at. So this is overall. This is not just, you know, this is just an overall as a class. How easy is it? Blah blah blah. All that good stuff. So I'm gonna be putting it as S tier. This could be an argument, an argument, and you can say what you want about it. You guys can let me know what you guys think. But now we're gonna be going with Evoker. I still don't think this is an S tier healer at all. I think it would need to be more like a wrestler. You literally have to, you know, the Evoker is kind of unique because of the new abilities that you don't see, but at the same time, they need to make it to where it needs to be like a wrestler, to be honest. You need like a Swiftman and you need something that can like you need more overall healing. You don't have the healing. After all your, double burst healing, like you're not going to be able to heal 100 to 200k DPS nonstop as an Evoker. It's just not going to happen. So, it's still playable and it's still really good. It's just underrated again. It's overshined by like wrestler druids and other stuff like that. Still a good healer, but definitely not one that's you're not gonna win against a better class. And we're gonna go with the next one here. Augmentation. People have a really hard understanding of the spec. This is a support class. This class was never supposed to do one-shot burst damage. So again, this could be argumentative, but I'm gonna put this as A tier. It had the entire purpose is still there. You still have the utility for your team. You still have everything but insane burst damage. That's the only reason people played it is because it was broken. They do this with every spec. They'll try out. Everybody just jumps on the bandwagon of, and this is how WoW is. So you don't blame people that are playing broken stuff because this is on Blizzard, not the players. Like imagine if I'm playing like you know, I don't know, for example, Enhancement Shaman or like just for example, just something like that or like Guardian Priest or something or Holy Priest, whatever. And they're facing something like a Wrestler Druid and you can see the difference of how hard you're trying and they're just sitting back there doing nothing and they're all full HP the entire game. So you cannot blame the players of, all that good stuff, but we're going to try to keep going. I don't want to make this video too long if I don't have to, but I do like, you know, making sure you guys understand how this works. So I'm trying not to be too biased with classes, but again, this is all, personal. This is not your opinion. This is just my opinion. And if you have a different opinion, you can just put in the comments. I read almost all the comments usually. It depends on how much like if we're getting 8 to 10k views, it's pretty hard because it'll come by a few weeks by and they'll be like, oh, well, I can't go all the way back in there. I don't get notifications, but I'll answer everything I can. So pretty much, we're gonna go with the next spec here. Destrolunk, an S tier spec, very good. If you're getting precog decently and frequently, it's insanely good. You'll be easily doing 200k bullets, maybe even like I think it's usually around 250 to 300 on your actual CDs. But overall, a very good spec. You have the damage, you have the burst, you have a decent amount. You basically have everything but like the overall maybe like healing. You have a health zone, that's about it. And then the overall lock healing that you got, it's like a mini shield that you always have on, whatever. But it's definitely an S tier spec. I would definitely recommend trying it out if you haven't already. But we're gonna go to the next spec here. S tier Affliction Warlock is definitely an S tier spec. You're doing easily 80k to 100k non-stop 24/7 if you're just bleeding everything. This is a dampener. This is full dampen, and this is specifically about Solo Shuffle. So this is just as an overall spec in Solo Shuffle. This is not just like Arena. Arena-wise, it's a big dampener, and since Solo Shuffle dampens so quick, now there is one problem with a Warlock, is the melee cleaves. If you don't have a good wrestler dude healing you, and you don't know how to play lock, and you're just like sitting tanking all their bursts, and you're not porting, you're gonna think the spec is garbage. So if you're not playing good on this class, you will have a hard time. Regardless of how easy the rotation is, defensively, every lock still has to play somewhat of a decent time. Like, you can't just be bad, get on lock, go in there, and just win lobbies. It won't happen. You'll get farmed by melee 24/7 or kicked off CD. So definitely an S tier spec if played correctly, but we're going to go with Demo. Again, another insane spec. Definitely an S tier spec. Now, the reason I'm not putting these in plus S tier is because you got to remember, these are not doing 150k to 200k DPS. There's very few classes that are doing that right now, but the classes that are doing just unhealable burst damage or damage, or they're going to be in that category. So I still think these are very underrated, but once, the current, just the S plus tier specs are just really broken. It's as simple as it gets. So that's just how it goes. So Demo, very good spec. I think it's mainly not even about your the big purple dude that you spawn now. He's not your main source of damage. He enhances all your other minions. So it used to be your Demo guy, your demonic. I don't even know what the word. I don't know who he is. You summon him and he helps all your other things. Yeah, apparently he doesn't really do the main damage anymore. He enhances everybody else, which makes them do unhealable damage nonstop, like on that burst go, whatever. Even if you CC the demonic, whatever it's called. I don't know. I think it's an S tier spec. You guys can have an argument about that and let me know what you guys think. But let's go to the next spec here. Mage, Arcane. This is actually a kind of weird one to go through. I still think it's not bad, but I think it's an A tier spec. The reason is overall you're not having much damage with the spec. You do have a decent amount of burst damage, but just pretty much one click on all their CDs, and you're pretty much fine. Like if you click an actual wall or something like that, your burst is gone. You do have a little bit of overall damage, but you're not as anywhere near a Frost Mage or an Ellie Shaman or a Destro or a Demo or an Affliction. So I'm gonna put it as A tier. It's definitely not an S tier spec, not yet at least. Maybe it's underrated. I haven't faced very many of these, but we're gonna keep it there. Fire Mage. It does a lot of damage. I think there is one issue with Fire Mage, and that's the survivability. You still have to run Glass Cannon. You don't do enough damage, I'm pretty sure, without running it. There's just as a Fire Mage, it's like a sub rogue. If you don't have like, or it's like an enhancement shaman, a MM hunter. If they don't have the burst damage they need, or like a Windwalker, they need to be able to kill something in between that 1 to 4 second window on every CD. And if they can't, then it's not going to be fun. So Fire Mage right now in Solo Shuffle, I'd say is an A tier spec. And the reason mainly, you have the damage is there, but it's like a Windwalker. They're dead in between that ratio of like, if the very best can play this, but if you just log on Fire Mage, you go into Arena, and you're facing a melee cleave or anything else, you're just gonna be taking unhealable damage because you just automatically take unhealable damage. This could be an S tier. I just don't think it's as good as the current. Like these can just do unhealable bursts. They have everything. Fire Mage is a spec that has a rough time surviving, and overall from all quarters, I'm checking at not low CR, the casual player, the pro player. This is overall. This is not just, oh, I play this high CR and it's good. It's, if a casual player were to log on this, or, a Gladiator XP player, would they would they be able to have a chance versus other people that, stuff like that. So it could be an S tier. It still does a lot of damage, don't get me wrong. It has a lot of potential. It has damage. I just don't think it has enough, like, survivability in Solo Shuffle. Unless you have a very good healer, you're not having a fun time with Fire Mage, and you're going to have a rough time. Frost Mage, is an S tier spec, and the reason is you do unhealable damage. Your Ray of Frost is doing, if you do your correct rotation, it's going to be doing anywhere from, 500 to 700k from that entire channel. And then on top of that, you get Glacial Spike, which is already doing 280, like 282 to like 315 or somewhere around that, you know. And then on top of that, you have Frost Bomb. Now, Frost Bomb can be dispelled, but if it hits you, it hits for like 215k, and you have it up every like 15 or 15 seconds. Pretty much every single sheep go off DR, you pretty much have it up. It is dispellable, obviously, but a lot of people just don't even see it because it goes off in 4 to 5 seconds. And if you waste your dispel on it, it's a good thing to dispel. But then at that point, you're just free sheeping, and I think it's an S tier. It has a lot of damage, a lot of potential, and we're gonna keep it as that. And for the next spec here, we're gonna go with Warrior. Warrior is a very good class, or a spec in general. Now, solo shuffle wise, it's kind of hard to put in this into place, but I honestly think it's an S tier. It's not an S plus tier, but it's still really good. If you can get cleaves going, you're going to be doing easily 100 to 140k. Pretty much maybe not nonstop, but on your burst. So, and you have Sharpen. Sharpen's a very good CD, especially in solo shuffle, probably because once you get to 40% dampening and you sharpen somebody, it's literally not healable. It's automatically like, okay, I'm not healing this. I gotta wait until it's over. Very good. Now you will have a hard time chasing these other specs, but overall, in solo shuffle, it is an S tier spec. Now we're gonna go with Fury Warrior. Unfortunately, Fury definitely has a hard time. I have yet to see really any of these, and it has maybe the damage potential, but I don't think it has anywhere near this. It could be an A tier. I think I don't know if I want to put it as A tier actually. I'm trying to think here. I don't want to. I feel like it does really good damage, but it just doesn't do enough. I don't think. I think you're just getting melted, and you just don't have the potential to kill anything, and you're just dead by the time you click everything. I don't know. This is kind of a spec that I don't know. Is it as good as a Fire Mage and an Arcane Mage? I don't think so. I'm not sure though. I haven't really faced any of these in Solo Shuffle ever. I'm gonna put it as B tier. This is gonna be like an unknown category. You guys will have to let me know. Is Fury Warrior good in Solo Shuffle? I guess if you're the best or like somebody good, it can maybe work. But it's like you're kind of just throwing at that point because you're not playing an Arms Warrior. So I'm gonna keep it as this. I'm not really sure. Personal experience wise, I have no idea. I'm trying to look at everything, but I literally have yet to see this spec at all at any rating. So I'm gonna keep that there, and that'll be that spec. I'm just gonna put the tanks at, the D here. Put that there. Prots, and there we go. Next spec, what you all been waiting for, is the Rogue of the Rogues. Sub Rogue, the first S plus tier that we have. Yes, indeed. There's one problem with Sub Rogue, and that's the fact that you don't get Shadow Dance back. Basically, you have 30 to 45 seconds of your vanishes before you literally are sitting there using your blades for Shadow Dances to get your charge back. It's absolutely ridiculous how you never have a charge up after like a minute in the game. Because some games go for 3 minutes. Like some of these rounds that are higher rated, the game doesn't last till, it'll last till 60% damn minimum. Unless you like win in the opener, obviously. But yeah, there's a really hard problem. Honestly, I would rather them take out some damage and give us the Shadow Dance charge that we used to have. That way, we have our main potential to actually do something and not sit there and farm for literally a minute and have no Shadow Dance. That's literally like 2 goes in between that time. But overall, you have the damage, you have the utility, and you obviously have no healing, but you have everything else. You have the CC, damage, and utility to help your team. Definitely an S plus tier spec, and it definitely does need a nerf. Obviously, there's a thing that Blizzard always does with Sub Rogue is they'll make it super broken, and the reason is they're never gonna balance Rogue because it would take a lot. It really would. You really would have to. It'd have to be like Shadowlands Rogue, to where they would add in the trinket, and you'd be able to 150 somebody, and then the trinket would carry the rest of the damage, and then everybody would get that. That's how that would even get, slightly, because having a rogue one shot you, or not even one shot, but 100 OU, Now, there is a counter to this, is if you use CDs on blades, you're pretty much unkillable. However, if you're running Thieves Bargain, you're getting blades back before they would have Trinket, so you're pretty much able, especially if you pair this like with a Fire Mage or something. So, solo shuffle wise and overall S plus tier, and there we go. Assassination Rogue. Now, I've had a really bad experience with this. Before the nerf, and a few games after, it was pretty fine until I started facing DHs, Warriors, Rets, and Sub Rogues, and basically everything else. It's no longer an S tier spec in solo shuffle wise, personally. Now it's still good, and before the nerf, I was 2243, and I was having fun with it. You know, it was actually pretty fun. Like in arena, it's great. Uh, but I think overall as assassination, you have CC, but I can put it as an S tier just because you still have CC, you still have the Shiv. We're gonna put it as S tier, but I will just put it as S tier honestly. I don't really think assassination is anywhere near a warrior or a mage or these specs. But since this is solo shuffle and you have all three, you still have somewhat utility. You have CC and you have the somewhat of. I'm gonna put it as S tier and we're gonna go on. You guys let me know what you guys think. Honestly, every time I face like one of the better classes, it's instantly you're having a rough time, or I am having a rough time. But next back here, Outlaw Rogue. Honestly, I think Outlaw currently in the current meta, like with the current on Outlaw Rogue, the max damage you're gonna be doing, and this is with Blade Fury carrying, is 100k damage, like maybe. And this is with everything stacking. This is with pets, and this is 90% of your damage being Blade Fury. Otherwise, in solo shuffle wise, the thing is you have CC. Like the thing about Rogue is you have CC. That's what makes it good in solo shuffle. But you don't have damage. Like overall, you have your burst dam, but like once they click something, you're literally just sitting there Blade Furying. I'll put it as an S tier because this is solo shuffle and not everything's about damage. Sometimes it's just about overall. So overall, I guess I can put it as S tier. Honestly, I would rather put this here. I've never seen an Outlaw Rogue in solo shuffle, and it was good at low rating, but then once I started facing actual other classes that are doing 100 to like 200k damage, you just can't keep up. It's just not possible. So honestly, I'm gonna keep it there. It could be an S tier, but personally, I'm putting it as an A tier. Maybe, maybe if I had full best in slot for Outlaw, it could be an S tier. But in solo shuffle, I just have yet to face any I don't face assassination. I don't face Outlaw ever at any duration. I just face sub like very rarely as well. But we're gonna go to the next class here. Boomy is a very very good spec, and I'm tempted to honestly put it as an S plus. The thing is I'll put it as an S tier spec just because S plus tier would be kind of not smart to put it as, because there's other specs that are so much more easier that are still really good, and there's very few S plus tier. This is like S tier is just remind you that S tier is still insanely good. So these are insanely they're still good. Like they're just not like the current boom boom. And honestly, you can argue that it would be like this, and you could switch around stuff, but I'm not really 100% sure. It's just I didn't want to play a sub rogue in solo shuffle with these type of classes. Or honestly, I don't really like the S plus tier. That's the thing, because it kind of ruins my chart. So honestly, let's just cancel this out. I know we kind of did it mid-video, but instead of doing that and making everything complicated, because if I put two specs at the very top, it just doesn't look right. Because then you're kind of just being a little bit too, like people know you're being biased when you put this at the very top. Because then it's like reverse psychology, which is like, you know, you're trying not to look biased, but in reality, you are being biased. So I'm gonna just cancel this. Let's just put how it used to, normally. It's whatever. So we're gonna put Rogue with just with the S tier specs. The thing is Evoker could be down to maybe, it could be down, but honestly, I still think this is insanely good. Like honestly, I faced a bunch of them. They're insanely good. All these other specs are still Very nice. But I'll just keep these, and you guys, everybody knows like a little bit of how a class works, but I don't really want to, do that and have another thing. We'll just put it as S tier. S tier is the top dog, and right now these specs are doing very well. So now we're gonna go with BM Hunter, and BM Hunter obviously an S tier spec. Even after the big nerf that it had, it still does unhealable damage, and it is definitely a insanely good spec. You have a lot of damage. If you're playing with a Wrestler Druid, um, in twos, it's insanely good, but we're talking about Solo Shovel. Solo Shovel, you still have the consistent damage. You basically have everything you need. It's definitely the best of the three specs right now for Hunter. My bad, had to get a drink. But yeah, it's definitely an S tier spec. Survival, honestly, I think it's an A tier spec. I think the run issue is it's not a BM, and it doesn't have the output damage that you would need. And for a survival hunter, it's basically like a Windwalker or a Sub Rogue or anything else. When you pop damage with this spec, you need to be doing a lot of damage. Like this is, you need to be doing a lot of output damage, or it's not gonna work out. So it needs the burst damage. If you're gonna get of a class mainly burst damage, they need to be doing a lot of burst damage. And this class it just doesn't do as much as the current meta like S tier. So I'm gonna put it as A tier with Assassination Outlaw and Fire Mage and all the other good stuff. Again, these could be argued and whatever, but I'm doing this by I don't think these are as anywhere near as good as sub, and same thing with all the other ones, but MM Hunter, again, A tier. It still has the potential, but again, another spec that you need to be able to kill something in that 3 to 4 second window. That's just how these specs work. Because after the burst, they're garbage. Like you literally cannot kill anything, and they're literally just doing 100. They're 100-0ing you non-stop consistently. Now, if you want some like cringe sniper shot one shot build, obviously you're able to do that like from stealth, and you're able to like maybe 100, 30 or 40 somebody. Overall, though, after the nerfs or whatever came in, yeah, definitely an A tier spec. I haven't even seen this spec in ages. Ever since that happened, ever since they aren't god tier. So we're gonna keep Hunter there. Disc Priest is honestly, I'm tempted to put this as a. I don't think the thing is there's certain classes that just overshadow Disc. I think Disc is insanely good. It's still really good, but in reality, I don't think Disc is anywhere near as good as a Mistweaver or a Wrestler Druid. The thing is, I know Disc is better than Evoker, so it's kind of questionable. What do we want to do? What do we want to do? I want to put it as like high A, but not as good as a Wrestler Druid. I still do not think it's like anytime a Wrestler Druid will face you, unless you literally outplay them, you're never out healing a Wrestler Druid. You're never gonna CC a Wrestler Druid. You literally just sit there and try to out PvE them. So I'm gonna put this as A tier. This could be an S tier healer if Wrestler just wasn't so broken. Same thing with Mistweaver is fist weaving and non fist weaving is just incredibly broken versus the other specs. But SP, an A tier spec. I think the one wrong thing with SP is the same thing wrong with every other caster that doesn't have consistent big dam. With a SP, you have to get your bleeds up and you have to cast. The problem is, usually a lot of specs that have to cast have a rough time, especially SP. Mainly because DH, Warriors, Sub Rogue, BM Hunters, stuff that can do consistently just pump you non-stop. That's what Disc Priest doesn't have. You don't have, buttons that you can click that just instantly do big dam without casting. And by the time you do fake cast somebody, you're already going to be at like 60. You have a lot of utility though. Your utility is really good. This is still a good spec. Now, honestly, I don't really want to put Arcane with SP, but trying to think here. Do I want to put SP? I think SP is still really good though. Like, what's it? Honestly, I'm gonna put it as S tier. In solo shuffle wise, you have the utility, you have the healing, and you have the damage. You also have the CC. So in solo shuffle wise, I still think it's an S tier class. I'm trying to do all the things. Do you have the big damage, like consistent big damage? Do you have CC? Do you have the utility? and all that good stuff. Same thing with Outlaw. So this is why this could be argued, because it has at least you do somewhat of damage and stuff like that. So we're gonna put this as S tier, just because I don't think as good as a Rogue, obviously, but if you really wanted to, you could put this like maybe a, you know, it's kind of confusing, honestly. It really is, because these classes are underrated, but they're also this is purely based on solo shuffle. So what we could do is we could put this down here. I still think Evoker and solo shuffle is insanely broken. I mean, you're doing unhealable burst damage the entire game. So I'm gonna keep it as the same. These could be argued and maybe switched around, maybe a little bit, but that's just how that's gonna be for now. At least Shaman, I think it's another S tier caster. You have the damage, you have the healing, and you have somewhat of utility. You have basically, I call it bubble. So underground, you have wall, you have totems, you have static totem where you can get people away from you, and I think overall it's definitely good, and especially in solo shuffle where you don't have to cast. It's one spec that you literally do. You not one single cast do you have to do. That's the best thing about playing in Ellie. You just sit there, free cast. You're never getting kicked because you don't have to cast. So there's no, that's just how that goes. So we're gonna put that as an S tier in solo shuffle. Now this is not arena, so in arena these can be switched around a little bit. But in solo shuffle, as long as you have all the utility and consistent pressure and all everything around, it's gonna be an S tier most likely. But we're gonna go to the next spec here, and it's going to be, let's go with DK. Frost DK. Honestly, the thing is there's a lot of S tier classes. The thing is some other classes overshadow other classes. So when I put these in you gotta like listen to what I'm saying when I say it, because these could easily be an A tier spec, but the thing is they're actually insanely good. Like they're really good. So I'm gonna put Frost DK in an S tier spec. I still think, if you watch Party Waffles and he's doing 100 to like 160k on his, CDs, and then just non-stop pressure from him and from Frost DK overall, it's honestly same thing with Unholy DK. These are just in solo shuffle, consistently pressuring you non-stop, and then with the amount of burst with APOC they have, like APOC for this guy, and then Faraz DK is just doing unhealable damage, and it has the potential to just work well with everything else. So Frost DK, Unholy DK, very good in solo shuffle. I haven't really seen much Frost DKs, not gonna lie. So this could be argued again, since I'm basing this, but with everything I know about it, you have the burst damage, you have a decent amount of utility, you still have silence, and you have CC. So maybe you might maybe not have the best, you don't have as good as utility, but overall you have everything you would need to be an S tier spec in solo shuffle. You might not be as good as maybe a DH, but I still think it's an S tier. You guys can let me know what you guys think. I don't want to make this video longer than I have to, but I am trying to make sure you guys know where I'm coming from when I say a class is as good as they are. And if I did have a higher class, I'm going to show you what it would look like, and I'm just going to put these at higher, so then you know which one's the top of the top, maybe, possibly. But there's only two classes, or a few classes I put over, everything else. But you guys can let me know what you guys think, and all that good stuff. This could obviously be argued, like, literally. Like, I think the only thing that could be argued, like, in an S tier category to where it's really good. So, Frost DK could be argued, but if you're a good... The thing is, if you're a good player, it's really good. But if you're like a casual, you're gonna have a hard time. I'm gonna put it as A tier, honestly. Just because if you're not setting up correctly and you just use your burst, like if you're not hitting, two things plus at a time, you're gonna have a rough time actually doing anything. So I'll put it as A tier. Frosty is easily an S tier spec. It's really good. But let's just go on to the next one. You guys can let me know what you guys think about that. Let's see here. Let's go with Shaman here. Enhancement Shaman. Yeah, garbage. Now the thing is, you do get the proc damage. There's one thing that's wrong with every single class that is based around burst. They die too quickly. Like if you're facing something like a Arms Warrior or any of these other specs, they're able to kill this guy or a Fury Warrior or a Windwalker, maybe not a Fury because you have D-Stance now or whatever, but overall, without Ignore Pain or whatever, Arm says, you're going to be flopping really quickly. So enhancement, you have the burst damage. I know they have burst damage because I faced them. They do unhealable burst damage, but they just die in literally like 3 globals after their wall and underground. They die in literally, and you get those CDs basically in the opener every single time, no matter what. So I would put this in A tier. The problem is this is solo shuffle. You have basically no CC. You have a little bit of off healing, but you just have one category. It's definitely not as good as the Frost or any of the others. So, there's that. Disc Priest actually could be an S tier healer because obviously it's not as good as Restored, but that's the same thing with like SP not being maybe as good as Sub, or SP not being as good as Boomy, but they're still in the same category. So I'm gonna put it as S tier just because you have the overall utility. So obviously you're not gonna be the Restored. You're gonna have a really hard time against them unless you play very well. But you have the utility, you have healing, and you have damage. That's all three that you need, and we're gonna put it as that. So S tier, solo shuffle, my bad. Um, Hopefully I'm forgiven. But let's go with the next one here, and we're gonna be going with Windwalker. Unfortunately, Windwalker is gonna be an A tier, and actually I don't even think it's an A tier. Honestly, I think it's like a B tier. What's one wrong thing with Windwalker? That's the same thing with enhancement. You have the damage, but again, you have no MS and you have 0 defensives. For example, let's say a sub rogue, a unholy DK, or for any of these specs, and you have 2 of them on this little guy here. I imagine like a sub rogue. So you know how sub rogues literally die in 3 seconds unless you preemptively click buttons. That's how these are, except they don't have a vanish or a cloak or a way out. They just literally get trained. If they port, they're gonna follow them around a corner and slap him, or they're literally gonna pick him up by his head and throw him like a football. So again, they're just not tanky enough. They would literally need to be a plate position because plates are just like they just don't. They're able to tank a lot of the stuff, but it has damage. So if this wasn't solo shuffle and it didn't have to be paired with like if it was paired with like a Frost DK or something like that in solo shuffle or in arena, it's really good. But in solo shuffle wise, it's just not. Like if you don't do setups correctly, you're just gonna get blown out of the water. Feral Druid. Again, I think Feral in general is in a really good spot right now and is very good. Again, in solo shuffle, you have CC, you have damage, your defensives are not the best. So, honestly, this could be an A tier. The thing is, I'm trying to think here. I don't think it's an S tier, let's be honest. I think the reason that this is not S tier is if this little guy goes out of bear form or after bleeding and tries a cyclone, he's gonna get literally if he gets swapped out of form, he's gonna have a hard time recovering. So I'm gonna put it as A tier. This is still a very good spec, don't get me wrong. But this is specifically solo shuffle. This is not arena. If you guys want an arena tier, then I will make an arena tier. But this is solo shuffle and overall as a class or a spec, and that's how we're gonna do that. So now we're gonna go with Mistweaver. I actually ended up skipping it. Mistweaver, S tier healer, 100%, hands down. You have the healing, you have the utility. You do take a decent amount of damage, but you have you have enough to where you're good. So definitely an S tier healer. I'd say it's definitely better than Priest, but it's not as good as like a Rusted Druid. So we're gonna go to the next one here, and we're gonna go with Paladin. Rep Paladin in solo shuffle, very good spec. S tier spec. You have the damage, you have the utility, and you have a decent amount of healing for your team. Now I will say it's not as good as a DH because DHs like a ret, unless you're best in slot, you're only gonna be doing maybe like one. You're probably doing 100k to like 140k. If they're all stacking, you're gonna be doing big damn though. So it's definitely an S tier. You literally have a lot of CDs. You can solo heal your entire team almost every single go with Sank, Sack, Lay on Hands, Bop, Bubble. You have your own trinket. You have your Vengeance Shield. You have your wall. You have plenty of CDs for everybody around you. An S tier spec, 100%, hands down. That's not even an argument. We all already knew this. And now we're going to with H-Bell. H-Foul as an overall spec, I think is an A tier. I don't think H-Foul should be a disc or a Mistweaver in any world. Now, if it's played by the correct person, it's definitely an S tier spec. However, if it's played as an overall spec, you're gonna have a very hard time, facing a Wrestler Druid or a Disc or a Mistweaver. The problem is your mana regen, you're going before they do, and after a certain amount of damp, by the time 40% damp comes up, you're not even able to heal it, and they're still able to heal it for a little bit longer, which is you end up losing because of it or something like that. You have utility, you have the healing, and you're a plate, so you don't take much damage. The problem is you just don't have enough healing. You don't have enough healing to out heal something, and that's what Solo Shuffle is. It's not about CC, it's about out healing the other person. It's literally about sitting back, healing, and that's it. But it can be an S tier, but I don't think it is. I honestly think it's an A tier. It definitely needs a buff on healing to be up here, but you know, at the same time, if it had really good healing, it would definitely be above everything because you have everything at the spec already, other than like the amount, like immense amount of healing. But who knows? Restless Shaman, very decent spec. In solo shuffle wise, I don't think you overall have it. You're having a really hard time versus the current meta, like DHs, DKs, rogues, casters like that. You're just taking an immense amount of damage. You don't really have much CC. You do have Nox and Lasso, and maybe like Hex, but like if you get it's a rough time. You have a decent amount of healing, don't get me wrong, but overall, definitely not a S tier spec. It would definitely need a little bit more overall healing to be up there. But we're going to go to the next one here. Rest of Druid. S tier spec. We all know this. This has no introduction needed. Definitely the best healer spec in the game. Even after that insane nerf that actually wasn't even that insane. We kind of already knew this. I don't even have force on my Rest of Druid. And I'm playing with Cat on her BM. We're like literally like 32 and 8 or something. That's in arena wise, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's very good spec, and that's that. Holy Priest, definitely down below here. It's gonna be an A tier spec. It has the healing, but it's definitely nowhere near a Wrestler Disc or Mistweaver, and that's pretty much it for that. You have decent amount of CC. You have somewhat of damage, but just overall, you just don't have the burst healing needed to out heal these other specs. And DH, S tier spec. We already know this. DH by far is the best solo shuffle spec in the entire game. The reason is it's very high, very low skill, level. You don't have to be very good to play this spec. Like for example, Rogue, if you're not playing good on a Rogue, you're going to start irritating your team because you're just going to get smacked in the mouth with a banana. So, unless you're playing Rogue good, people are really going to hate you, mainly because you have to CC to win. No matter how much damage you're going to be getting, unless you're completely one-shotting somebody, you're always going to have to CC an immense amount just to be able to kill that person. So, DH by far is going to be the top dog of the season right now, or, of solo shuffle. It has the lowest skill gap that needed. It has the highest damage. You may take a lot of damage as a DH, but with an immense amount of 150 to 200k damage, on your burst, and then you're doing it consistently of minimum of 100k to like 125, even to maybe to 140, you're just gonna have a good time with the spec. So the number one spec of Solo Shuffle currently would be DH. So let me know what you guys think about this, and I'm just trying to look over it real quick, see if I see anything. Now this could be argued, by the way. Again, Frosty Cat, I'm looking at it. You have CC, you have damage, and you have a decent amount of utility. This could be changed. Do I want to put this with the Sub Rogue and with the Warrior? I don't know about that. I think if you play it very well, it can be very good. But as an overall spec, if you're not doing your setups correctly, it's not like an UHDK. You can't just sit there off your CDs and just get APOC runs and just run somebody down. You're still going to have to do your setups, or else they're just able, like a wrestler is going to be able to heal your damage. So I'm going to put it as A tier. You guys can let me know what you guys think. And that'll be it for the videante. So like, comment, and subscribe. I'm losing my voice again. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know what you guys want to see next. And I will see you guys in the next one.